All right, today is Wednesday, March 26th, and this is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. To start off, we don't have any peers that need attention. All right, and from sorry.
Do you want me to add some? Well, I just assigned one to Louis, the CSI test. I started pushing more of my in-progress work on the CI system back to the individual repositories. CSI test is one of them where I noticed an issue just yesterday. And CSI driver host path, that's where I started a pull request today about the deployment script. Let me get the bug number or the pull request number. What is it? Deployment enhancement. I'll copy the URL. If someone could look at that, that would be good. I think it is relevant for the current release because it also changes how we organize the deployments for different Kubernetes versions. So that's why I opened that today. I'll just copy the URL.
Okay, sure, thanks. All right. So also last time, Kevin opened up an issue asking why we need a cluster driver registrar. He made some good points, and I discussed this with Saad, and I think we also agree. So I think for the most part, we're leaning towards not having a cluster driver registrar and just having the driver create their own CSI driver object. If anyone has objections to this, please take a look at this issue and comment on the it.
Wait, so just to be clear that we're still going to create the object, so the mechanism is not going away. It's just that you don't have to use the sidecar to create the object.
Correct. You could just you deploy your driver with all your manifests. One of your manifests will just be the CSI driver object itself.
But what if the cluster driver registrar today creates the CRD?
The CRD right? Definition?
Yeah. So first, it wasn't supposed to do that. And second, for 114, we moved away from CRDs and we're back at entry objects.
Ew.
Louis, you missed quite a lot of fun.
Oh, that's not good. Why?
Oh, you missed a lot, dude.
Well, I mean, the very fact that we changed from one mechanism to another makes me think that maybe having the sidecar do this work is a good idea, because if it ever changes in the future, we don't want to hit every driver and say, oh, by the way, you got to change your deployment mechanism. If you could contain those changes inside a sidecar and say, you know what, just run the sidecar and we'll do whatever needs to be updated in the future version.
I guess also the main thing was that, so the CRDs were alpha. So we can change alpha stuff however we want. Now that the objects are beta, we are bound by some stricter backwards compatibility rules. So we will not be able to make such drastic changes again in the future.
But we could, in principle, add fields to that object, and the driver registrar sidecar could, in principle, populate those fields with something useful.
It could. The problem is that right now, like some of the fields that we have added there are not actually queryable by the driver. So like the pod info on mount, we had to expose a flag in the sidecar and then we just pass through that flag to the object. I think the only thing that the cluster driver registrar is actually querying is if the driver supports attach or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, just from a point of view of a driver developer, what this means is that we're going to have a 113 method of deployment, a 112 method of deployment, and a 114 method of deployment. You see what I'm saying?
That's correct.
Well, that was always going to be true anyways, because the sidecar versions were going to change.
No, but I mean, it's not just a sidecar version. It's like now in 114, I need to add a CSI, a CSI driver object, right? As part of my deployment.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
It's like, it's
In lieu
as
of the
if,
sidecar.
you can treat it as if this is a new feature.
Got it.
We're adding a new feature, and if you want to use the new feature, you need to make some changes to use it.
Okay. I mean,
So you can use the old sidecar for a while at least.
Well, so okay, this is only, so like the thing is alpha is, we can break alpha, right? So I kind of count alpha as not having the feature.
Mm. So
okay.
you're saying the sidecar will go away and it won't be an option to keep using it.
So sidecar cannot work, actually. It will not work.
Well, so
the sidecar-
currently the sidecar has been updated to use the new beta objects,
Okay.
but we're just, I think now we're kind of questioning, do we want to actually release this sidecar and support it?
I see what you mean. I mean, all it does is just register that. So I could see that. Now that it is part of the entry.
Mm-hmm.
So what can we do in 113? In 113, is it possible to put a part entry also?
No. So for 113, it's the alpha CRDs.
Okay.
Yeah, but the same mechanism works. You can just
Oh yeah,
create.
you could
the cus-
create the CRDs yourself if you wanted. You don't even have to run the cluster driver registrar.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
You'd have to create the CRD definition and then create the CRD object
Yeah.
separately, right?
Yeah.
Both steps.
So I'll still probably use the cluster thing. All right, that's good to know. Maybe are we creating like a changes doc between Q version to Q version?
I think in our documentation, in our Kubernetes-CSI docs,
Yes.
we need to figure out a way to sort of version them. Right now, they're not really versioned.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it seems like we need just a page like saying, hey, this is a change from 113 to 114. Wherever that is, I'm just saying.
Okay. I think we'll have to, let's see. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how we can document that, because it's not always just the Kubernetes version that might require changes. Even just updating the sidecar on the same version might introduce new changes.
Sure.
So we'll have to figure out a good way to document that systematically.
Sure. But normally it's like its own release of Kubernetes that the sidecars are frozen, right?
I'm sorry?
On a release of Kubernetes is when we will also release sidecar containers.
Right now, our release of the sidecars are generally aligned with the Kubernetes release, but we don't have to be.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, cool.
Anyway,
I'm fine.
yeah, if you still want to continue supporting the cluster driver registrar, please take a look at this issue, and we can discuss on this. Otherwise, I think probably by the end of the week, if we'll want to make a decision on this.
Okay.
All right. Going into our remaining 114 items. So we have this docs change in progress to update the to point to the new host path deployment thing. I guess, Patrick, are you reviewing this?
Sorry, which one?
This one's updating the docs to update the example page.
Yeah. I've mostly left that to you because you were already commenting, so I've not really followed that much. Is there something that currently needs to be done? I can ping Olive if that's the case. I agree. We should get that done either way.
I think there was one thing outstanding on the snapshots, and I think that's resolved. So I think this can be updated, or is ready to be updated.
Yeah, I think do we still need the snapshot enhancement to CSI driver host path?
Are you saying right now CSI host path doesn't have a snapshot example?
It does deploy the snapshotter, but I think the documentation hasn't been updated yet. Let me check.
Oh, okay. So maybe that needs to be done first.
Yeah. So it's just deploying the snapshotter, but the example only shows how to create a persistent volume. It doesn't say anything about snapshotting. I think that was the last thing that we discussed, whether it should go to the CSI driver host path. And I think we agreed on that now. So yeah, I'll ping Olaf and ask whether he wants to finish that.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Moving our objects to beta. I synced up with Shing, and she's still working on resolving the issues in this PR. I have the topology beta change out, and it's ready for review. I've asked Chang to review this. If anyone else is interested, please take a look. There is quite a bit of complicated things I had to do to handle backwards compatibility and node version skew with it. And then I think, Jan, you have one docs update here.
I think I still haven't updated with the latest review comments.
Okay, yeah, Saw just had some yesterday. So. All right. All right. Hopefully by next week we should be in pretty good shape with this. Okay. Hamon's not here, so I'll skip resizing. I think all he has left to do is to actually release the sidecar. So I'll sync up with him on that. And then for raw block, I think we only had some documentation left for that.
And I'm working on that today.
Just a quick question on resize.
Yeah.
Is it an alpha feature for
Yes.
114? Okay, thank you. And does it have its own sidecar? Or is
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we'll have to update. Okay, one more thing besides releasing the image, we'll have to add a page to our docs on how to use the sidecar.
Excellent. Thank you.
So let me add that as an item. All right. So for raw block, I think the other remaining thing we had was also the documentation for it. I think this is done. Ben, will you be able to work on that sometime this week?
Yeah. So I guess you didn't hear. I'm working on it today.
Okay, awesome.
Hopefully PR by the end of the day. I don't know who's going to review that.
I can review it. You
Okay.
can me.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Next up is the CI work.
Yeah, it continues. I added CSI test sanity testing That's one of the more bigger the technical changes. I've added that to both to the CSI driver host path and to the CSI test repository. So if in the future, if we do a pull request against the CSI test repository, it will test run the sanity tests not just against the mock driver, but also against the host path driver after deploying that driver in a cluster.
Okay. So are the tests passing now?
No, there's still one open. This one test, this intrusive test that still fails. I haven't looked at that one yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if we can somehow split this up into some smaller pieces so that we can actually check in the tests that are actually passing and have that start going instead of waiting for everything to be ready.
Yeah, we can certainly skip the test. That won't be a problem. But
okay, I'm also considering to if there's any way we can reduce the size of the PRs just to make them easier to review.
Yeah, well, that's why I started splitting out some parts. The one PR against CSI driver host path, that's basically part of the CI work. That was the local modification that I had to do for the deployment. Regarding that CSI release tools PR, I just don't see how that could be made smaller unless I remove features again.
Is it possible, I saw you added some shell check thing, can we separate that out into something separate?
Yeah, that's what I meant with remove features. I could just split out that particular feature and add it later. That would be doable.
Okay, that might be useful just to make things easier to review.
Okay.
Cool, thank you. All right, next up is consistent sidecars. I guess Andrew's not here yet. I see, let's see, I see there's been activity on this, so I think he's on that. And then we have, let's see, okay, I'll sync up with Andrew on this offline. I think there's still some work for doing all the leader election stuff and also getting all the sidecars updated to use the new libutils. All right, and then, okay, here we go. And then for the stuff that I moved to done, I think we're done with all of the migration work. I think we're done with the common drivers, although we didn't really do much there. And then Jan finished the external provisioner scaling stuff. Yay.
Yes, it should be complete.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. And then we are also done for inline volumes with respect to 114. All right. So besides these remaining features that we're still working on, the next thing is to update our docs for all of the new features. And once we can do all of that, then I think we can start thinking about releasing the new images. All right, is there anything else anyone wants to talk about?
I have two random questions.
Okay.
One of them, what's going on with the vanity domain? Did we ever decide to do that?
We deferred it to the next release.
Okay.
It was going to be way too much change for this.
Yeah, it's going to cause a little bit of churn when it happens.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is with the ever increasing number of sidecars, is there any thought about doing a hyper sidecar like we have for Hypercube to reduce the disk and memory footprint of these things?
That's an interesting question. I've I've heard
about
some
that.
requests for this too.
We used to do that with the driver registrar. It had like a dash mode, and then we pull
No,
it.
I think, well, I mean, that wasn't very useful because one was a node component and one was a controller component. So
Yeah.
they
Yeah, I'm
still
talking
end
I'm
up,
talking about all the controller sidecars that's the one, the controller sidecars are the ones that are multiplying, not the node ones.
yeah, I think that's a valid concern because actually every Go binary, I think someone did some measurement, every Go binary requires a minimum of 5 megs of memory just by being in Go.
Yeah.
So I think consolidating all of the controllers into one large sidecar is something we should consider. It might get a bit complicated because all of the sidecars have their own flags and parameters. So I think trying to figure out how to have one binary and support all of the flags that the current sidecars use will get a little tricky.
Oh, well, so I was thinking of something as simple as what Hypercube does, which is just having one monolithic binary, but you would invoke it multiple times with different identities. But you're talking about going farther than that and actually having just one process that does all of the jobs in a single.
Yeah.
That would be even better. But there's an intermediate step, which is just to have a unified binary that you would invoke with different personalities for each of the sidecars.
I think that doesn't really buy us much, does it?
No.
It would buy disk space and a little bit of virtual memory.
Well, it wouldn't buy. I mean, they're so tiny already. They're like 20 megs. So.
Yeah, but combining them into one large binary, are we getting much out of that either?
I think if you do the single one, there's a couple of good things. Other than even if you did it the Hypercube way, you still have everybody on one repo. I believe that model for one repo makes it releasing much easier. But other than that, having it as one program that runs, if you do like the way we do it in CSI Sanity, where our flags are namespaced, you could do that, and then you would run one single controller, the CSI controller, right?
Well, I think every time we do that, the problem we run into is releasing something that has nothing to do with the other part. So we're forced to release everything every time.
Yeah, I mean that's how it's done in Kubernetes right now, right?
I guess you're right.
So we just
and you want the ability to run like one off version container to like fix a bug or something.
That's hard. If you want to do that, then you're gonna have to have it separate.
Well, you need to have the option to have it separate. That's what I mean.
I think if you think about it this way, if you had one hyper CSI controller, and you give it the flags like dash, resize dot whatever, then now start the resize controller. So if you don't give it the flags, they won't start that controller in that program, and you can start another one.
There's probably a way to solve this. I just wanted to throw it out there because every time I join one of these meetings, I hear we have a new sidecar, and it's like, wait a minute, when's it going to end?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally makes sense. But I think it's something we can consider. What I'm worried about is like if we have to end up still supporting both models, then we kind of get like the worst of all worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's not a super high priority, just something that occurred to me is.
And I was going to point out, even if you have one binary driven by flags, you still require, you're still going to have different YAMLs to drive to release these different controllers, right?
Yeah, you would if you're just doing a unified binary, and all you would save would be the virtual memory of the binary itself, and the disk space, which is arguably not that important.
Yeah.
I believe that releasing again after going through it many times is it's quite important. But I think now it's all automated, so I'm not sure if that'll be such a big deal.
Yeah,
so what are we up? We're like 4.
I think we're slowly making improvements to the release process and automating more and more of the parts, so that the release is not so painful anymore. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's still painful parts of it, but we're getting better.
Do we have like 4 of those controller type binaries out floating now?
Not including the cluster driver registrar. I think that's right.
Yeah, so we have the list here. I have attached
Provisioner,
resizer,
snapshotter.
Where's snapshot?
oh right, snapshotter.
Yeah. So up to 4 for now.
Yeah, getting rid of cluster driver registrar will help. Going back down.
Yeah, I could see why. I could see the motivation for reducing some of this stuff.
Yeah, all the externals can go into one, I think.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to consider that for 115 timeframe. And also speaking of 115, I moved all of the tasks that we had from the previous day and created a new board for it. So I tried to capture everything that was on there. If there's something that's still missing, go ahead, create an issue or a note and add it to this list.
Sure.
Okay.
If we talk about maybe for 115, talk about the passing the secrets and information like that to.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think SOD opened up an issue on this. I don't know if it's the same one.
Yeah, it's 233 or something like that.
And my mouse is not working. Okay.
There seems to be some major discussion around this. Yeah,
I think SOD opened up a new issue just to track the secret stuff, because I think people also were piling on other requests onto the same issue. So yeah, he opened up a separate issue just for the secret thing. Please take a look at this proposal and see if it makes sense to you. I think it's this one, yeah. Sod and I spoke with Jordan about this, so we summarized our discussion here.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Cool, thank you. All right, is there anything else anyone wants to bring up?
Hey, so I was discussing with Jing like a potential way to get CSI drivers to run on Windows. So I wrote up some thoughts on it. I'll post a link to it in the Workgroup CSI Slack channel and would appreciate some comments. I also put in the SIG storage agenda for tomorrow. So if we get time, we can discuss it there.
Okay, excellent. Thanks. All right, then let's call it a meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.